Welcome back to Logan Rando Aquascaping. My name is Logan, and today we're going to talk about arguably the most important topic in the aquascaping hobby, and that's how to actually balance out your planted aquarium. Because if your tank isn't balanced, you're going to have algae, you're going to have a bad time. So without further ado, let's dive into the topic. Step number one is to dial in your lighting. You've probably heard this before, but the light on your planted aquarium is the gas pedal. So the faster you run it, the faster you'll be able to go and the higher performance results you're gonna get, but you take a wrong turn and you crash and burn. So first of all, it's really important, in my opinion, that you purchase a light that's engineered to grow plants. Try not to cheap out, try not to go with a random Amazon brand. Just get something once that's really high quality, that is maybe even rated for super high power, because then what I recommend to do is that you get a dimmer, if the light doesn't have a built-in dimmer, and you start off running it really low, maybe at like 50% or so. Give your tank a couple months to kind of balance out, let it cycle, let all the ammonia leach out of the soil. And then a couple months in, if you don't have algae, you can slowly ramp things up. Alternatively, if you come out of the gate really hot, just running the light at 100%, you're kind of asking for a recipe for disaster because your tank is not balanced yet. Believe me, I've done it before, I've made the mistake, I've learned the hard way. So I can't say this enough, the lighting is the gas pedal of your tank. Be conservative on that gas pedal. Run the Honda Civic for a while. You don't need that Lamborghini right out of the gate. Step number two, dial in your CO2 and your oxygen. I highly recommend you run CO2 from day one on your planted aquarium because it's gonna give your plants carbon, which is really the resource that they need the most. Plants are mostly carbon. So run CO2 on day one, and you're gonna need a CO2 drop checker. If you don't know what that is, it's a little glass ball that you put a fluid in, and it turns color based on the concentration of the CO2 in the water. And what you're looking for is a lime green color. And here's what nobody tells you, when it should be lime green, because it's going to change from blue to lime green. Because there's a delayed reaction with the chemicals, there's about a 2-hour delay from what you're actually getting in the tank to what the color is displaying. So you want the drop checker, because of the delay, to be lime green 2 hours after the light turns on. This actually means that the CO2 levels are optimum as soon as the light turns on, but you won't see that lime green color until 2 hours after because of the delayed reaction with the chemicals in the drop checker. So what that means is that during the photo period, when plants are working and creating more plant and growing, they have optimum CO2 levels at all times. You do not want CO2 to be your limiting factor. As long as your lighting is dialed in, you can run high CO2 throughout the entire photo period. And then by the morning, you want to make sure that drop checker is dark blue again. If things are still lime green or it's turned to yellow, that means that your tank does not have sufficient gas exchange. So that's going to be a situation where you either need more plants and or you're going to want to add a surface skimmer to kind of like gas off that excess CO2 over the night, because oxygen is really important for your beneficial bacteria as well as your fauna. Step number three, establish a consistent fertilizer regimen. Fertilizers, along with lighting and CO2, are just kind of part of that holy trinity of balancing the planted aquarium. So you absolutely want to make sure that, number one, you're using a nutrient-rich aqua soil. There's so many great brands out on the market. I personally use the UNS Contra soil, and I juice it up with some root tabs. So in the beginning, I really like to dose a lean fertilizer because, again, the soil is really providing everything with a ton of nutrients. But then a couple months in, I switched to a complete liquid fertilizer, which has NPK as well as all the micronutrients. And the reason I do this is because it helps avoid those really early algae stages. In the beginning, before your plants are like really heavily rooted and things are established, you're at a very high risk for algae, especially things like green algae and diatoms. So by dosing those lean nutrients, you make sure there isn't an excess of nutrients that algae can take up and really thrive from. And it just really gives things time to establish. And then once things are really established, by dosing that complete fertilizer, you ensure your plants can really take off and thrive. And if you're going for like a jungle style aquascape, your plants will have everything you need. But if you want plant growth to be really reasonable and you don't want to be trimming every single week, there's no problem with sticking with the lean fertilizer. Just keep an eye on your plants and make sure that nothing is nutrient deficient. Step number four, create a maintenance routine that works for your schedule. Think about your lifestyle, think about your schedule, and find something that works for you, okay? Tailor it to your lifestyle. Now, most people, I would say in this hobby, tend to do one large water change per week when they're running a high-tech tank. So a good baseline is once a week, do a 30 to 50% water change. But a lot of the pros suggest that you do smaller, more frequent water changes. And that's what I myself do. While I'm not a pro aquascaper, I do have the flexibility of being self-employed and working from home. So I get in my tanks twice a week and I'm doing smaller 30% water changes. So the more smaller frequent water changes you can do, the better. But it's no big deal if you can only manage once a week. Just be consistent. Do it on the same day every week. Your plants will thank you, your fish will thank you, and maybe your housemates and significant other will thank you for establishing a really beautiful tank. If you get algae, the first thing I would absolutely address is the lighting. As long as you're running CO2, dosing consistent nutrients and doing your water changes, you're probably gonna wanna just lower the lighting. There's an excess of light and algae are thriving for it. So when in doubt, lower the lighting. If you're at 80%, take it down to like 50%. Your plants are gonna be okay. Yeah, maybe they'll be a little bit pale, but that'll give you time to kind of get things in control and reestablish balance. Something to keep in mind is that changes in the aquarium usually take about 2 to 4 weeks to produce results. So if you do make a lighting adjustment, you're not necessarily going to see clear results for at least 2 weeks. I've made the mistake before of raising my lighting and then like 5 days later, I'm like, oh, okay, there's no algae, no problem. Now you gotta wait a couple weeks to actually see what that change has done. And make sure you absolutely only adjust one variable at a time. Don't change your CO2 and your lighting and your nutrients simultaneously. Adjust one variable, observe, sit back, be a good little scientist, make some observations, take some notes, and then, pivot from there if you need to make more changes. And finally, take a holistic approach to balancing out your aquascape. Many of us have made this mistake in the hobby. We've chased after individual elements in our nutrient dosing regime. We've sought after magic in a bottle that is supposed to eliminate algae and, make your plants triple in growth. If things sound too good to be true, they probably are. So you want to make sure you're really thinking of the whole ecosystem and make changes that are going to benefit everything. So that's about all the time we've got for today. Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything you think I missed, let me know down below in the comments, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.